Now, speaking of dying, we almost hit $1 on the way there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dude.
you don't want to do
Tonight.
that.
James, you might tell us about your
Yeah,
experience
it was
with that.
Air Capital.
Air Capital.
Actually, I got the Facebook post. It's been 3 years last week
Wow.
since Air Capital, and on the way home on a Saturday evening during rutting season with the deer, came about 30 minutes out of Wichita and hit a 6-point buck with a small Toyota. And
It was just a day trip, and you hit
Yeah.
a buck.
Well, hello, Clever Kaiju World, the founders, myself, James, Gary, and Nate. We're here to talk about conventions and the artists we meet, the experience of that kind of thing. And we recently got back from Memphis 3 weeks ago, I believe. Gary and I got to go with Josh Metter, another Clever Kaiju artist. And that seemed like the perfect time to have this discussion. So we'll definitely talk about Memphis and our experience there, but we'll talk about these things in general. So,
Yeah. So
Nice.
welcome back, guys. Thanks for doing the trip. I know we were all together in Memphis like last year, and that was a great experience. But
That was really fun.
Yeah.
this year was in a completely different. It was in a completely different like location, right?
Venue.
They had a brand
Yeah.
new venue.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like changing venues runs a risk for a convention if they're going to be able to get the same crowd. You
Yeah.
know, they don't. It's hard to guess what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was down a bit from last time. I don't know if the numbers were down for sure, but
Yeah.
it seemed like sales and numbers were down a little bit. But yeah, there's always a risk there, and it's always more stressful for us to figure out how to
Yeah.
get into the loading dock and everything.
Yeah. The strategy is different.
That weird hill we had to drive up to get to
Yeah.
that weird little spot to
long
unload.
One-way ramp.
One way.
And-
Yeah.
but it's the only way out too.
yeah.
that's in the parking lot of the convention center.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
It's super weird. And it's narrow. I couldn't even imagine driving like a semi truck or like a truck with some
Yeah.
kind of trailer
Right.
up that thing and unloading.
Did
that
you
way.
Yeah.
have to share? Was there another event going on at all in that location, or was it just
no,
that?
it was just
No.
a convention.
Well, that's good, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a bigger location, I'm assuming, than their previous one. Like a
Yeah,
con,
it's
was it a
bigger.
con upgrade or a con downgrade?
Oh, well, yeah, upgrade.
Yeah, big upgrade.
It's directly
sure.
across the street from the Bass Pro Pyramid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's cool, I guess.
So I mean, but that gives you an idea of how the con is perceiving its growth. You know, when they start
Yeah.
switching from
Yeah.
one location to a larger, better one, because it costs them
Mhm.
more money. So
Exactly.
you get to see more growth, more people showing
Yeah.
up.
Or a new venue, they're like, we need everyone we can get in here, and they run a deal. So, I mean, either way,
Mhm.
it worked out. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, I'm glad you guys did it. Yeah. So your booth setup. You guys want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll start with even purchasing the booth. I mean,
Oh yeah.
we went with a vendor
Yeah.
space and not an artist alley space. So that's something we've thought about before. Being artists, you usually get a cheaper rate if you get an artist alley booth
Yeah.
or table.
Right.
They usually call it a table because it's usually a smaller space too.
Yeah.
But you're only supposed to sell your own art if you're at an artist alley table.
That makes sense.
And we have members, and we want to share their art too. So we had some books
Exactly.
by other members, and so we kind of need a vendor booth anyways. But then it's a bigger space.
And it gets more traffic, I feel
Yeah.
like. If you're in a vendor space, then like in the artist alley, sad enough. It's sad to say that, but I noticed that there's more traffic in the vendors
in
area.
the vendor area.
And a setup there as an organization, it helped being in the vendors area.
Mhm.
And I'd advise that to any group of artists who want to do the same as like get a vendor spot. You know, if you spend the extra money, do it. But for what we do, it was perfect.
Yeah. So we got a corner booth,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think it was just a single booth.
Yep.
It
It was big.
It costs a little bit more to get a corner, but like it's well worth it because
yeah, I bet.
Very
you,
much so.
you get two tables, both sides.
So with the foot traffic being a content creator, artist table versus the vendor table, you're seeing more foot traffic, more
Yeah.
more engagement, I'm assuming, as well.
I think especially for being an organization, a community as we are,
Yeah.
Mhm.
if we were in Artist Alley, maybe someone would just be like, "Oh, artists," you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But then they're like, "Oh, what are you?" Because they just were a little out of place
Yeah.
in the vendor space. So, "Oh, what are you?" Yeah, we're an organization. Let us tell you about what we do, and that was a big focus
Yes.
of how Josh and Gary and I set up and presented to people.
Yeah.
Um,
Because we had the main banner up, runner banner, and then we had our individual banners up as well. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that looked excellent.
yeah, I made a
So,
wall of banners,
Yeah.
side by side.
Yeah. And then I think that made people interested as well. It's like, oh, well, you do this comic and this comic. Oh, this artist isn't even here, and you carried their comic. Like, yeah, they're members, and people get sucked into that. And even the pros we talked to, they got really into like what we were doing. So
Yeah.
that was a really good sign for me. That caused some of that hype.
But we have some metal wire magazine racks that kind of fold out, and Josh
Folio
had
books.
Yeah, and lots of folio books, and like what do you call it? And a sort of tabletop easel that would hold a portfolio.
Yeah, that was pretty nice too.
Pretty easy to set up. We brought an easel, but we never used it.
Yeah, we were gonna do big drawing.
Yeah, draw live for the audience, for people walking by. We did do some drawing, but and people were able to see it, but it wasn't up on the easel.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm forgetting something about our setup that was unique.
Well, I think one major difference is that you guys didn't have any TV displays showing
No,
like
the
the
monitors.
monitors? Or,
Yeah, no TVs.
I mean, did you
'cause
feel
no
that
power.
was really a big deal? Was there a big difference? Was it even weird? Did you even notice that?
I feel like it went pretty smooth for what we were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not.
It was a little strange not having monitors.
And I think I don't know if it's more for us or if it actually is an attention getter or what. Like,
that's what it's made
it's kind of
for.
hit or miss. It's like
Yeah.
like sometimes people stop and watch, but I don't know if it like amounts to extra attention or any. And so
Yeah.
maybe I'm just like chasing my own whimsy, thinking that like more displays, more videos, more like but.
Right.
I do think like doing the drawing on the tablet and casting it on the screen, for people to watch it. That's always a winner. I feel like.
Ding dong.
I think we should definitely do that.
But yeah, the TV displays, you'll need power, and that's usually an added fee at a convention that you purchase from the venue rather than from who's putting on the convention, and those can be pretty steep, like $40 for power. And then you got to pack the TVs and the stands and set all that up, which can also be a challenge when it comes to packing the car. And that's what I was thinking we forgot was, trying to pack tight and small. And you brought up the screens, which we didn't use this time, and it seemed okay.
Yeah.
How much to pack? That's always a good question, right?
Yeah.
How many comics should I bring? Prints, things like that.
You're right.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a little different because my conventions, I have a different gear in general than a lot of people, because I've spent a few years, like, setting up everything that I could sell and just trying to push, like, it feels awkward to me. That was never really my jam. Probably because it's like, I would love for my work to speak for me so I don't have to, but that's very slim chance. It's not, some people can. I am not one of those artists, and I'm not comfortable talking about myself. I don't like being a salesperson. So it's like, if I can spend my time networking and interacting and getting to know people, that is far more. Then they invest in me as a person more than my art. Maybe because my art sucks. Nobody's told me that. Everybody says quite the contrary. But there are a lot of people also that know me at conventions, and they call me by name, they call me Mammoth, they call me by my work, never actually read the book. So it's, it's like, it's fine. This is where I belong. This is my role in this scene amongst my peers, and just is to be the face, shaking hands and everything. So my stuff is like, at least with Kaiju, and I do this with Cryptic too, the tattoo studio. It's like my focus, I'm more wired to want to represent all of us as a group and make a display more than like buy my book, and which is bad for business, I know, but
I mean, I think we're all in that boat.
I think artists in general are pretty bad at selling themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
know
Gary has a
myself at
reputation
least.
though that people are
Yeah,
like, "Oh my
Gary's
gosh!"
the exception of all artists I've ever worked with.
But he's also been doing it for like in person. Like he's established himself like a lot, at least a lot longer than me. So it's well, he's not even finished setting up, and he's already got people asking for commissions, and it's like I can't be upset about that.
But
Like,
Gary's such a strong personality.
right?
Everyone's
Yeah,
like,
it helps too. So I think he's a little bit of both. I think people have a long history of being able to talk to an artist that doesn't treat them like crap. That speaks in volumes for you.
Yeah.
That's the biggest strength I have. But if you can also turn around and do work that just blows people away, like, well, that you're calling me and calling me. So, congrats, Gary.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Daywalker.
I find, the way we came into Memphis, we talked a lot on the drive there,
Yeah.
5 hours, and we left, 2:30 a.m.
Yeah.
to get there on Saturday, which was crazy. And-
Yeah.
But,
That's your fault. That
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that you?
yeah. I insisted on it. I wanted to, I wanted
sounds
to,
familiar.
I wanted to work late the night before and get a little sleep. And,
Yeah.
That seems to be the con staple. Work
Yeah.
up until the time to leave.
Yeah.
Or massively prepare for your trip or gather whatever,
Right,
and then
and
leave
then
the
go.
house with little to no sleep. Get to the
Right.
con and then try not to die.
Right.
And then throughout the course of the weekend, get even less sleep.
Yep.
And then on the way home, die in the car.
Now, speaking of dying, we almost hit a buck on the way there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
you don't want to
night.
do that.
James, you might tell us about your
Yeah,
experience
it was
with that.
Air Capital.
Air Capital.
Actually, I got the Facebook post. It's been 3 years last week
Wow.
since Air Capital, and on the way home on a Saturday evening during rutting season with the deer, came about 30 minutes out of Wichita and hit a 6-point buck with a small Toyota. And
It was just a day trip.
But
Jeez.
that relates back to the money topic. We share our community. That's why we're at the con. Like Nate's saying, it's not.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when we come with that energy of excitement about our work and other people's work, you might get more sales too,
Yeah.
because you have this positive energy. You're excited to talk to people. Anyone that walks by, you don't know if they're going to be a fan and into comics, into your
Yeah.
work, want to hear about your story, your art, or if they're an artist themselves, and you get to like connect in that way. So
I mean, what we're
Yeah.
doing visually
Yeah.
is telling stories with our artwork, whether it be through a single piece through one of
Yeah.
the comics, and
Right.
Yeah.
engaging the audience
Yeah.
by getting that story to them through yourself when interacting really helps to push what you're doing.
And there's something to be said at conventions where, like you are one booth of dozens. Everybody has a story to tell. Everybody's story is worth seeing and reading and hearing. But like how you go about connecting with people, good artwork in those situations, it comes down to why the people are there. If they just want good comics, they're going to find them. And they're going to find them long before they get to you, and it's like, but having that personal connection with them, it speaks in volumes where it's just like I said, I have a lot of fans that are more of a fan of just me than before they even step foot into my work. And then they're like, oh, this is okay. I get it. And that, that's valuable. And that's something that, otherwise you're sitting behind a table, like a carny shouting at people,
Right.
trying to schmooze them into taking your art. And it's just like, I mean, are you like, what is your motive? Like why do you make what you make? Is it just to make money? Is it to actually connect to people? Is it to share an actual story? Because most of those things are going to take more than just demanding people give you money for things.
Yeah.
And it works for some. But like depending on the convention, some people, they study up on certain conventions and it's just like, okay, no, this one is the one where we draw superheroes with big boobs. Is it foolish for me to do an anime con with Potbelly Mammoth? Probably. It's not anime, and I don't blame them. But Mammy's adorable. Maybe there's a connection somewhere.
Little chibi creatures and stuff.
Yeah, little.
Yeah, I mean, catering to your audience is great. The one thing that frustrates me though is like you've got your independent creators, and they show up at these conventions and they're not peddling their original works. They're peddling fan art.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so,
Mhm.
instead of promoting themselves, they're just promoting this drawing that they did of something
Sure.
else that they're a fan of.
Yeah.
But
And
on the other
it's-
hand,
it sells though.
if you
Well,
spend
it
$300
might
on a
not,
table,
though.
Right.
if
It
you spend
might
$300 on a table and you show up with work that nobody's ever seen, that nobody's ever heard of, to a crowd that is there to see the things that they know and love, and to meet the actors behind the animes or whatever shows they know and love, or to see other people dressed up as the characters they know and love, and then here you are doing an original character that nobody's ever seen before. Yeah, it's kind of foolish too.
Yeah,
you know,
it's
and
a double-edged sword.
and even with Mammoth, like in my experience, like me being, behind the table, behind like this big display full of like custom that I designed and printed and cut myself, like my own furniture pretty much. I got like bookshelves and I had the big signs and the big banners and everything. I had people tell me that they were looking for my show on Netflix and didn't find it. I'm like, oh no, this is me in my, like, with a laptop with like a touchpad. I don't even have a drawing tablet. Like, with my cat. Like this is as indie as you get. Well, I'm just here for indie stuff. Well, this is as indie as it gets, but like it backfired for me.
Yeah, you
like because
never
it
know.
looked like it was something that should be on TV because I catered the artwork because I wanted on TV one day. But people are looking. It depends on what people are looking for, and I had to learn that you have to cater to what people are there for. And if a wall of their favorite anime characters making out is what's gonna make $5 or $10, that's a personal decision. And I'm like, I'm just gonna keep drawing mammoths, I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
But I couldn't get upset when I wasn't making money.
Well, Gary, how about your setup? I mean, you got several commissions. You sold some
Yeah.
stuff. You did pretty well, I think. And you do your own thing.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
not a
it's
lot
like
of fan art and stuff.
I have stuff like the Atari label stuff, that I guess maybe could be considered fan art. I
Sure,
guess.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like, I usually try to like hook them in
Loosely,
with like that stuff, and then I introduce them to like my original stuff that's in my folio book. So if you go to my setup, it's like I'll have the Pac-Man and Donkey Kong stuff right there in the first couple of pages, and that usually will get someone to look at your portfolio book and they're like, oh, you make this other really weird stuff or cool stuff or these really neat settings and scenarios. And I just try to make things that I feel like people would be interested in. When it comes to like stuff that I did like with the Zarks, like the weird farmland stuff with the fantasy elements in it. People really tend to like that stuff. I sold a print of that while I was there. Did some commission work. One was in a guy's sketchbook, and then I did 2 sketch covers. Which I sold those sketch covers for like I think it's $60-$70. I can't remember.
And one thing you do is your setup has sketch covers on display, and usually you're drawing or something.
Right.
You have some drawings on display, which gives people an idea of what a commission would be like. So they see that, they're like, "Oh, I would."
Yeah,
like one,
exactly. And I have like prints of stuff out for sale, and I have like the prices for those on there. But I'll have a piece of original art out, like the Superman cover I did with Darkseid defeating the Justice League. That's a wraparound. You guys have seen it probably like 1,000 times, but I'll have a price out on that, and that kind of differentiates for the customer. This is his original work. This is printed work, kind of thing. So it's like they know like what they're getting. Like, oh my God, this is an original. This isn't like just this isn't like a print like his other stuff. This is the real deal. So like they would be like, oh, I'll pay him couple $100 for that or whatever. I was at Library Con and I sold I did this Thor's cover, the sketch cover. It is like these different versions of Thor, but the main one was Michael Jackson as Thor. And I sold, and I like totally sold it like right there for show for $150.
That's one you should have gotten a picture of before it went out.
Oh, it's on my Instagram. Yeah, I got it still, but that always cracked me up. It's like I couldn't believe that original actually sold, and it does.
Was that the commission's idea or your idea?
No, it's my idea. I just did it. And then I brought it to the show and put a price tag on it. It sold that weekend.
Right on.
The ideas you put in your sketch covers are very you. You don't just you don't just think, oh, I need to put Thor on a cover, and I'll make
Right.
it look cool. You do something that's uniquely your kind of
Yeah, like,
But
But
I
then
was
you
like,
follow
oh,
it
this
up
is
with something
interest,
original
yeah.
that people are like, okay, now
Yeah, that's
they've made that
unique,
connection. They, like, oh, he's a fan of this like me. Oh, but he
Right,
does something
yeah.
complete like you make that connection, and that's really what fan art is supposed to be. Not just like, look what I made, buy it. It's so much as like,
The
you're making connection.
Batman,
Like, I'm an artist, but I'm
Batman.
also a fan of the same things you are. We're all
Yeah.
nerds together,
Yeah.
and there's a
yeah.
huge difference. There's a lot of
Right.
long term value in that. Like, oh yeah, I bought it just because it had big boobs. Like, which
Yeah.
if that's what you're into, then totally cool. But like,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking for in kaiju is like being able to connect. Like, oh yeah, he can draw Power Girl, but he could also draw this entire like comic about a cat morphing into a person. Like, not to give it away, but so at this convention, like compared to others that we've done, how would you review? Like, is it
Mm.
Yeah.
is that a next year trip?
I do it again.
You do it again?
I definitely want to do Memphis again.
So
Yeah,
you-
sales wise, I didn't get any commissions, which are usually a nice money maker compared to just trying to sell
Mhm.
books. I didn't look at the numbers. I mean, that shows you how
Yeah.
where my head's at. Like
Right.
I'm there to
Network.
share, to share my work, and maybe get some fans that maybe don't buy a book. One thing I think is, I made more money at conventions by far when I was first starting, like 10 years ago,
Mhm.
than I do now. The economy has changed.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not just the con scene or culture that's changed, but the economy is not so great. So, so my sales aren't even as good as they used to be. I don't know how many, but I'll estimate 20 books maybe. But half of not half, 30%. I don't know, maybe half is printing costs on that. So it's not much money. It's not going to cover gas and
Right.
hotel and everything and
Mhm.
food. But I'm not looking to do that because I want to network and meet
Yeah.
other artists and
So when you're
Yeah.
there and you're doing what you're doing, how are you going about networking with these other artists?
well, one thing about having the vendor booth is there's 3 of us there,
Yeah.
and we get to take turns walking around
Yeah.
and chatting with
Just
people.
Go
So
and talk to people.
Is it just a random, hey, I like your work, and it evolves into this is who we are and what we do? Or do you go
Yeah.
up? Do you like scout out and go, okay, I want to talk to this person, that person, this person?
Yeah.
That's
A
kind
little
of
bit of both.
We have a few
A
different
little bit of
strategies.
both, yeah.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, like Gary and I will split up and like we'll collect business cards and then come back and then
Who'd you
With
get?
the secret trading card.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Playing Yu-Gi-Oh with the artists in the booth. Like, no, we get them. We want them on the pen click. No, these we want them in the. Can we get them on the plane click? Yeah, we're moving them to that pile.
Yeah.
So yeah, But yeah, the strategy has changed a bit depending on the
Yeah.
show, and we've reached a point where people come to us now, and that's cool. And that's something that I definitely want to talk about because you ran into actual kaiju people in Memphis,
Yeah.
which is interesting because there's once upon a time, if I needed to find a kaiju person, I just had to look for one of us four in a red shirt.
Are you wearing your reds?
And
Yeah.
last year, the few times that we've done some conventions here lately, I'm looking for one of us because I'm looking for Gary, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll just look for the guy in the red shirt. There's a lot of us now. If it wasn't for you having to look for you, like look for the tall guy with the cool hair, like I would not have known. Like I went to 3 or 4 different people before I found anybody with like, which is a good feeling, which is cool. But it's like we're gonna have to get to a point where we're gonna have to organize like our group at these conventions, at least in the local, because
Yeah.
and it's fascinating whenever new people outside of our network are coming to us and talking to us. Did you
Yeah.
have any of that experience?
Well, we saw some people who we'd see, like Fake Hedgie was on there. We got to see her and her mom in person again, which that was cool.
Yeah.
There's another member, wasn't there, that was
I'm
there?
not sure.
But it was just really neat to see that person. But I want to go back to the networking thing really
Oh,
quick.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love doing when talking to, it doesn't matter if you're Daryl Banks or another indie artist, whatever. I always talk about certain things in the art. I'm like, I like your composition or your usage of black or how you handle your line weight or what. It's like when you start using terminology with the artist, that's when they're like, oh, okay, this is another artist I'm talking to. This isn't just someone who likes to work. Like, they get what I'm doing here, and here. And it was really well, I guess we're gonna talk about it later.
Yes.
Nick Vitara.
Yeah.
Is it pronounced Vitara?
I believe so.
I will.
Axe Wielder John.
That's Axe Wielder John. Isaac and Josh were like, man, I want to see him and Gary talk because they're really into like shape language and like they're big on shapes. And we met and got to talking. Like I could just see Isaac and Josh out the corner of my eye, and they're just kind of like, oh my god, the two guys with the shape language stuff.
Yeah. We'll give him more of a spotlight and whatnot. And
he's a wonderful artist, nice guy, really nice guy.
Before we get into that, if we're ready to, I know it's kind of a break, but I'm going to swap out the batteries on this just to make sure that we've got probably a quarter, but I don't want to risk it in case it. So if we wanted to take a break or whatever, we could wrap
and then
up
into
the convention
these.
and then come back and do and just put them together.
Yeah. Okay.